Welcome, everyone. Today, I am blessed to have with me Quinten Lovejoy. He is the founder and president of the 300 Group, who is an affiliation of the Crane Agency. Quinten is here today to discuss really all things insurance, workers' comp, GL, anything as it relates to your COVID-19 crisis, any issues and matters you might be dealing with. Our goal today is to actually get through this and condense some of this information specifically as it relates to your insurance programs. And I'm really blessed and thankful to have Quinten here with us. So Quinten, how are you doing? Welcome.
Good, Scott. Just hunkered down in the bunker here, and windows are sealed and doors are barricaded, so we're ready for this crisis.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us. And just for the folks that are going to be listening to this, could you kind of just give maybe a couple-minute background on who you are, what your agency, your group does, and just a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Born and raised just north of Kansas City, Missouri. I've been in commercial insurance for going on 10 years now. I started my insurance career in a direct writer insurance company that specialized in contracting, manufacturing, some of those blue collar spaces. That's kind of where I thrive. You know, I like to say the bluer the collar, the better we are at insuring the risk. So a few years ago, the Charles Crane Agency, which was founded in 1885 in St. Louis, Missouri, they came to myself and three other guys and said, we would like to start a Kansas City office, and we'd like you guys to be the founding members of the Kansas City office. And so I left the world of W-2'd employee, fully comfortable in what I was doing, and jumped into the world of entrepreneurship and business ownership. So left that book of business behind and started at zero, and started the 300 Group. And that's like you said, an affiliate. I like to say it's powered by the Charles Crane Agency, because the Charles Crane Agency has a huge presence in the commercial space, especially in contracting and manufacturing. So this is kind of my sweet spot. This is what we're good at. And I appreciate you having me on here to talk to everybody.
Thanks, man. And, manufacturing and contracting, particularly commercial construction, is really a sweet spot for us as well. So I'm excited to have you, and really know that our audience today, our customers, people we're linked to, and all of the type of folks that are in our network, we're going to get a lot of benefit from this. So cutting right to it, obviously we have a crisis on our hands. We have this COVID-19 coronavirus. Just as we speak here an hour ago, the governor of the state of Florida shut us down.
Yep.
Completely went from safer at home strategy to now a stay at home strategy. So I think we're now the 32nd state in the union here to have that happen. Construction, depending on where we are in the country, has not seemed to slow down, and certainly depending on what type of project. Because of that, could you talk a little bit about what you're talking to your construction clients, manufacturing clients, those business owners? What are they coming to you with? What are they thinking right now? What are the thoughts that they're planning? What are the items they're planning for? And just their overall sense of what's next. Well, can you just kind of talk about a little lay of the land here?
Sure. A lot of what I'm hearing, a lot of what I'm talking to my guys about it's the usual concerns, just kind of amplified to, the nth degree right now. Cash flow, employee retention, job continuity, all that stuff. And it's all just to such a higher degree right now. And at the same time, they're trying to wrap their minds around the various assistance programs that are out there, how to handle their employees and with respect to COVID-19 and all that stuff. They're having to become experts in a lot of areas, very quickly. So it's business as usual turned up quite a bit, but also all these other things that are going on. So what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to encourage a lot of them to head up and eyes peeled. There's a lot of talented salespeople, a lot of talented tradesmen out there that are being laid off and furloughed, and even people that aren't in the industry already that have certain work ethic and have certain talents and abilities. And, I've encouraged them to keep their eye out for some of this talent that's out there, and they can easily pick off that talent if they have the infrastructure to do so right now. and have a huge advantage once all this is over with, So from that aspect, I've just been trying to be a word of encouragement to my guys, and just show them that, you know, this is just another thing that's going to make them stronger moving forward. And we can handle all the things on a day-to-day basis, but let's also implement some strategy to be stronger once this is passed.
So when the clients are coming to you and they initially say, okay, here's all my concerns, now they're now amplified. Is there anything specific related to the different insurance policies that your typical construction company or manufacturing company is going to carry, whether it's workers' comp or general liability, that they need to be doing right now differently than they would before, whether it's notifications or conversation or checking policy limits? Just if you could kind of talk through anything specific as it relates to this, that they should really be doing different.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I've been telling people is know whether you're, and most guys already know this, but it sits in the back of their mind. Okay, am I a federally regulated OSHA state, or does my state have its own state-specific standards? California, Nevada, most of the states out west have their own more stringent safety and environmental requirements. A lot of the mid-Atlantic states like the Carolinas and then towards Kentucky and Tennessee, and even as far Midwest as I am in Minnesota, Iowa, a lot of those have state-specific, safety requirements. So I've been that's usually the first thing I'll mention to people, because with everything going on, that can kind of slip. And the last thing you want right now is OSHA problems. Okay.
Why does that matter if it's federal or state? How would that vary depending on what's going on right now?
How it impacts right now is OSHA has certain reporting requirements, as it is. OSHA treats, the flu and the cold, those aren't subject to, OSHA 300 or any of that type of stuff. Well, COVID is. So, if there's on the job complications due to COVID, then those are reportable incidents. You have to record those. Okay. So that makes a difference. I'm by no means an expert in all things OSHA, and specifically with the state mandated stuff, the state specific. But so what I've been telling guys is let's make sure we know which is which. Are we federal or are we state? That's why it makes a huge difference in the set of regulations you're expected to follow right now.
What should contractors do right now if they think they do have a coronavirus related claim? What do they do with their insurance company? And I guess now that you've told me that, what do they do? How do they report it properly?
So you're going to run into a couple things specific to contractors and manufacturers that matter here. So number one, as with anything, notify if you think you're going to have a claim that's any way related to COVID-19, notify them. At least notify them that, hey, this could be an issue. Oftentimes there's provisions within insurance policies, and they say you must report within 72 hours or 96 hours or whatever. So, even if you and or your agent aren't exactly sure if something will be covered, go ahead and report it. At least get it in, because what we don't want is we don't want to not report something and then get 6 months down the road and realize that it might have been a covered claim if only we had reported it on time. Okay. So let's at least make the report immediately upon the thought that this might be a reportable incident, and at least get it in the pipeline, get it reported, and then the insurance company can start doing their thing. Whether they're going to deny it, accept it, investigate it, whatever, at least let's get in the pipeline and get started.
From a reporting perspective, is there specific forms? Is an email suffice? Does this need to be done in writing on a specific form, cover letter? What types of process do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on your carrier, and it depends on if your agent usually helps you initiate those, or if they just leave you to the carrier to do them or whatever. Usually the way it just works for me is they would contact me, and then either myself and or my account executive, we would gather details and then notify our internal claims team, and they would help all of us kind of together as a team report it into the insurance carrier. That's just our internal process. Everybody has their own deal, but it can be as simple as calling the carrier. But with respect to what's going on right now, I always say the more documentation, the better. So, if there's a, simple email address, claims@abcinsurance.com, fire it off, fire off the email to your agent, whatever, I like documentation. I'm a documentation guy. I like to have it in writing. So I would just advise to, put everything in writing, get that paper trail moving, get that paper trail established, and start from there.
Are there any specific endorsements or exclusions that someone should be aware of with their policies?
Yeah, there's a couple things. So just know up front that as of right now, most of the business interruption provisions out there, whether that's business interruption, civil authority, dependent properties, most of those right now require physical damage to property before coverage is triggered. Okay, so a virus floating around in the air is not physical damage. A tree falling over on your building is physical damage. Okay, and also most of those policy provisions, they exclude a virus. And so COVID-19 is a derivative of SARS, and SARS is usually explicitly excluded within these policies. Okay, now I say that, and I say stay tuned, because right now there's some analysis going on the federal level that there might be a government backstop if insurance companies go ahead and cover these claims with respect to COVID-19. So, I know of a local restaurant franchise that had contracts to sell food items in all the stadiums around Kansas City, right? Well, all those have been canceled now, and so the insurance company is saying, well, that's not a recoverable claim. Well, if the federal government steps in and says, okay, insurance company, go ahead and cover that loss for that restaurant franchise, and we will backstop it, basically we will bail you out, then it might be changed. So typically there's constitutional amendments within state constitutions that say you cannot go back and retroactively change an insurance contract. Okay, but some states, there's some legislation in the works that might be changed. It just varies state to state, So that's one thing. Just as a rule of thumb, don't count on business interruption until further notice. Okay. The second thing I'm going to advise people is contractors are very creative people by nature, right? So if you're going to get creative, you need to have a very frank conversation with your insurance agent and your insurance carrier. Okay. So, because what can happen is you can change how you, quote, represent yourself to your carrier. If you're like a plumber and you start doing, sanitation or some type of remediation services or something, you need to find an avenue where you have that conversation, say, hey, this is an avenue that we've identified. We're going to start going down that avenue, and notify them, because what you don't want to happen is, let's say you were doing some sanitation work in conjunction with your plumbing work, and the chemicals or whatever you used are not typical to a plumber, then all of a sudden you could have a problem with a general liability claim or an umbrella claim or something that came in, as a result of your work. And so you would not want to perform that work and then have a claim not go covered with it. So I would just say, if you're going to get creative as a contractor and explore avenues for other revenue, or to keep guys busy right now, have that conversation with your agent and with your carrier to make sure that we can have coverage in place for those new avenues.
It's interesting that you bring that up. I don't know if I necessarily would have thought of that, because there is a lot of creativity out there right now.
Yeah.
If you're venturing down the path with your insurance carrier, is there anything that you need to be doing differently today if you are an excluded business, meaning you can be on the site, you can continue to work, you're not part of these barriers? Where does the insurance agent, if your interpretation is that you are excluded business and you're on the site working, is there a chance that your insurance company might not think you are? And if there is a claim and you're working, that they you're not in sync in that sense?
No, Scott, I can't imagine that because it's not really up to the insurance companies to make that determination. From what I mean, from what I'm seeing, that's a government determination. You know,
Okay.
whether you're essential or not, that's really not up to the insurance carrier to decide. These are all government actions. It's government action that's making people shut down and making these definitions. So I would be shocked if an insurance company tried to do something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if an employee is has contracted COVID-19 that you have, is that covered under your workers' comp policy now, or is it a different policy coverage that you should be accessing?
Yeah, good question. So if you think an employee has COVID-19, the rule of thumb in most states, remember, we're talking 50 different states and jurisdictions and everything. But this is what most states say. Most states, it is the burden of it's incumbent upon the injured employee to show that they suffered an injury arising out of or within the course of their employment. That's usually how the statute reads, something along that line. So if the coronavirus is out just generally in a community and an employee has to get it, then that employee would have to prove that the workplace placed him or her at a greater risk of contracting the virus. If the virus is generally in the community, it would be very hard to prove that, right? That being said, if the coronavirus was not generally in the community, but multiple people at the same company contracted the virus, then there might be cause to show that the employment placed that employee at a greater risk of contracting the virus. So there could be, compensable loss in that situation. But as a general rule of thumb, the claimant would have to prove that their workplace and their job was a result of their coronavirus acquisition. You will see that a lot right now in health clinics and hospitals and nursing homes and things like that. There will be a lot of work comp claims in that respect. But if you're a contractor and you just got guys, you're a contractor and you're in, Detroit right now, or New York right now, then it's going to be pretty hard to prove that, your guy acquired, because it's rampant in the community. So it's going to be really hard for that guy to prove that his employment is what led to him acquiring coronavirus.
For a business owner that's looking at their insurance, they're going through these issues, there's uncertainty in the times, and they want to go to their professional services, insurance agent being one of them. What kind of questions do they need to be asking, number one? And what information do they need to have offhand so that they are armed and ready and prepared to have that conversation, in your opinion?
Most of these questions we're talking about are the questions that you want to make sure of. In your state, what's the burden of proof on the employee? What does that employee need to show with respect to a work comp claim, for instance? Like I said earlier, is our state an OSHA, federal OSHA state, or do we have our own regulations? A lot of people have called me up and asked, can we scan temperatures of employees coming in and working? And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. That's a proactive, measure that you can take. And so, I would just be aware of the proactive measures that you can take, and talk to your insurance agent about what are some of the things that we can do to get ahead of the curve instead of always responding to things as they come up. And so what I've told people a lot of times is step number one, implement an infectious disease control policy. Very few people have ever even thought about infectious disease within their company. So let's get an infectious disease control policy implemented right away. Send out formal communication, formal coronavirus employee communication. What I've also had people do is implement a work comp report upon exit. And so, you furlough me or you lay me off or whatever, then I have to sign off that, as of right now, I don't have any injuries, I don't have any illnesses, I'm not making any claim with regard to anything work related that I might later come back and have a claim on. And the reason that's important right now is, there's the lag time between acquiring the coronavirus and the symptoms starting to show up. We hear it all the time, 10 to 14 days or whatever. Well, if you lay me off today and then April 20th, I say, well, I had coronavirus back when Scott laid me off, and so not only did he try to get out of his work comp claim, well, he's also, discriminating against me because I have blue eyes, that type of thing. So that can cause, a couple layers of problems. So those things I mentioned, infectious disease policy, formal communication, work comp report upon exit, which, by the way, that third thing, you should be doing those all the time anyway. Coronavirus or regular environment, doesn't matter. You should do that all the time anyway. I have templates for all that stuff. I can provide that to you, Scott, if you want to provide that, as part of this, because these are just very simple templates that people can put on their own. They're in Word form. They can put them on their letterhead. They're free to use them.
That'd be great. I appreciate that. We definitely could send that out as well,
Yeah.
as well with the video. In conclusion, Quinten, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you said, what a big miss if we didn't talk about this? We really need to touch on that.
Just know that right now, most insurance carriers they're taking steps to be very client friendly. Okay, they're waiving late fees. They're extending grace periods. They're trying to help with cash flow and employee retention. So most contractors, their general liability is either based on gross receipts or payrolls, right? Well, insurance companies right now, they usually set that at the beginning of the policy year. Then they do an audit and catch up or whatever. A lot of them are allowing their clients to massage that midterm. So, hey, we had to lay off 5 guys. Our payroll's down 20%. Let's adjust down so that we can be a little bit friendlier on the cash flow. And then moving forward, when things return to normal, then we can catch back up and be back up where we normally would have been. So that's one thing that I've seen. I've gotten communication after communication from my insurance carrier partners that they've been willing to do that.
Really cash flow relief, like whether either
Absolutely.
rebalance of their payment structure or even the ability to potentially skip a payment to get yourself without penalty.
Right. Well, I haven't seen anybody say that you can skip a payment yet, but they've said, if you're a little tardy on your payment, we're not going to hold that against you. We're going to extend the grace period. We're going to forgive the late fee, $30 late fee or whatever it might happen to be. But specific, if your work comp payrolls and your work comp monthly premium is based on, $1 million a month in payroll, and that costs you, whatever it is, 40 grand a month in premiums. If you can bump that down to $500,000 a month in payroll and 20 grand in premium, then that really helps all of a sudden. So,
Yeah.
So other than that, we've hit on a lot of good stuff. The one thing I did want to mention is that temperature scanning. Don't be afraid to do that, because that under the ADA, the language is, can it pose a direct threat to yourself or others? And the answer in this case is yes. So don't be afraid to do that as a proactive measure. Just be real careful. ADA, HIPAA, all that kind of stuff. I can't walk in, scan your forehead, and run around. Hey, everybody run out. Scott's got 104 temp. I couldn't do that, but, we could have a private conversation, say, Scott, I'm worried about your temperature. Go ahead, self-quarantine 14 days, and then follow all the stuff that's come out, with regard to the Family's First Coronavirus Act, whatever that is. And those 3 things that I talked about, those 3 policies, maintain as much flexibility as you can. This is literally changing hour by hour. So, just be flexible. It's a fluid situation right now, and it's a pain in the butt for everybody. But just that extra little 2 or 3% of effort can really save a lot of people a lot of headaches down the road.
Quinten, look, I want to say thanks a lot, man. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this. This is very helpful. To all of you that are listening, I really hope you found some benefit in here, even if it's one little nugget, question, something to call, gave you an idea. The intent of these is really to help you, give you some focus and guidance on exactly what you can do when it comes to your insurance during this time, but even general good policy and good procedures to take for insurance and dealing with your agent and also your carrier. So in summary, make sure you're communicating with your agent and carrier. Make sure you're understanding what your OSHA guidelines are, whether you're in the certain state you're in or if you're under federal policy. Talk to your insurance agent about the ability to, if you have late fees or tardiness, or to adjust your policy if it's based on your annual revenues or monthly revenues. Right now, those are down. Let's get those adjustments in place, and every dollar counts. So I hope this was really beneficial. Quinten, again, thank you so much. Quinten Lovejoy, the 300 Group, affiliate of Crane. Here, if you guys would like to talk to Quinten, you'll have links to this to be able to speak to him directly. But Quinten, if you wouldn't mind, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Best way is my email, qlovejoy@craneagency.com. And this guy's with me 24/7, so they can call me on my phone, text me, whatever they want to do. That's 816-390-6835. So that guy right there gets me 24/7. So any questions, anything anybody needs, I'm happy to help.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Everyone, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Take care and stay safe out there. Thank you.